As a fan of a lot of second-gen groups, the biggest difference I noticed between now and then is just how much I have the pleasure of seeing that good old melanin in those 480p, if we're even lucky to have the resolution that high, subbed videos from 2008. Thanks to the not-so-advanced technology of the 2000s, I was reminded that there is, indeed, blood flowing through the veins of these idols. Nowadays, it doesn't seem to matter what the natural skin tone of the idol is, they're all photoshopped or enhanced to look the same, pasty white complexion. Now before any of you come for me, let me get something straight. I'm very aware of Korean idols who have naturally fair or pale skin. I also know that different lighting makes idols look lighter than they really are. Photo shoots use different filters to set the mood or work with the concept for the shoot, so technically, they're not being whitewashed. I also understand that skin complexion can be lighter or darker according to weather or season. I'm Latina, for crying out loud. I've experienced this myself. With all of that said, you can't convince me that idols, even the fair-skinned ones, look like this when the same people also look like this. And the only difference between these photos is that this is an American show, and this photo was posted by their official Twitter. The whitewashing was so baffling on Aespa that people talked about it on Reddit. Now, America certainly has their own problems with colorism and racism. I'm certainly not giving them a free pass on that. But the sad reality is that K-pop in Korea, by extension, has a massive colorism problem. If you've seen my shorts about this, you'd already know what happened with Shinee. People were so upset over Key and Taemin's colors comments toward Minho's skin that their team edited out the clip and all guilty parties apologized. Here's where the paradox comes in. Diversity is growing within K-pop. In second generation, we only saw a handful of non-Korean idols, and I don't think it was until third generation we began to see Southeast Asian idols in the scene, specifically Thai idols. Now we are starting to see more idols who aren't Korean, some who are even non-Asian. Although K-pop groups with non-Asians are not quite as mainstream, BLACKSWAN still has a decent platform within the K-pop space, which is a huge step up from when K-pop saw their first black idol. Seriously, when Alex debuted as the first black K-pop idol, they basically did everything to hide her, whether it was intentional or not. On top of increased representation of non-Korean idols, we know that K-pop has gained a global recognition where it has a significant presence in the Western music space now. More than ever, they have international fans, many who are different people of color. Where promoting in the US was a one-off thing K-pop groups used to do every so often, K-pop comebacks now occur with their Western audience in mind, which is reflective of their awareness of the world watching them. And despite all of this, colorism and color diversity, for lack of a better term, seems to be at an all-time low in K-pop. So why the hell on earth is this the case? Now, colorism has certainly been an issue in Korean society and Asian cultures in general for a very long time, but where the difference is now and before is that before, you couldn't fully get away from the reality of diverse skin complexions. This is where my point about those lovely melanin videos from 2008 becomes relevant. I was certainly not trying to pull a shameless plug for a second-gen group so I can entice new generation fans and not be lonely in my love for TVXQ. Shh, I did no such thing. So taking a look at those melanin videos from 2008, makeup and skin whitening were most definitely a thing, and I'm sure they were used a ton. But the less developed technology that was used for filming had sort of prevented show producers from exaggerating the lightness of the idols. Idols appeared light. You can tell who's fair-skinned here and who's on the tanner side, but it was in a way that looked more realistic. What this underdeveloped technology also did, though, was that it seemed to be more forgiving to idols who had darker skin tones. During second generation, we see much more footage and pictures of idols in darker complexions, where they don't appear to be too washed out by video and photo filters. Chungmin, for example, had pretty tan skin in early TVXQ, and broadcasts didn't adamantly hide it. But now it's like, God forbid you see even a little color in him. What this means for the present day is that with the rise of advanced technologies, social media, and the normalization of Photoshop and filters, that not only do we have have in abundance, but it's also insanely accessible. We've reached a point where tanned or darker skinned idols will only appear that way if they're adamant about it. Otherwise, everybody is being photoshopped to appear pasty, so much so that they match the color of the wall. Social media and photo editing bring fantasy to life. It allows idols to appear very pasty without it looking theatrical, thus creating a new standard. Idols couldn't really do this back in second generation because they lacked the aid of video filters, so heavily whitened makeup on its own wouldn't give them the appearance they desired. It might have just made them look more theatrical or even comical. So being light now, even if somebody's naturally light, let's take Suho for example, who is naturally fair-skinned, this is no longer enough because your photo editing app can push it more to what was once unattainable. And that's precisely why your favorite idols continue to be colorist, among other reasons of course. The standard has become so unrealistic that a hint of melanin looks bizarre and thus unattractive. Now don't take this as me saying idols who use photo filters to make themselves look like ghosts means they're deliberately being colorist or that they're telling the world people with melanin are ugly. If anything, 4th gen idols have only fallen victim to this beauty standard and may think this is how they need to look to be visually pleasing, because God forbid they show some skin texture or the smallest sign of impurities. The defense I've seen for the desire to appear whiter argues that it's rooted in personal choice. Where the issue lies though is the rigid beauty standard that exists for skin color in Asian cultures. How much of a personal choice really is it when a society is telling a darker skinned person that how they look is less attractive? Even if colorism is at an all-time low, I do want to point out that it doesn't mean every show, photo shoot, selfie, and video has whitewashing. I'm bringing this up because I really don't want people using this as a gotcha card to deflect from the very serious issue of colorism and whitewashing in K-pop. It's certainly not the case where you will absolutely never see idols showing some melanin. I'd be even more depressed if that was true. What is obvious though is the prevalence and increasing prevalence of whitewashing and colorism in K-pop, and that is what matters. It's not about idols looking beautiful, tanned or light, and that we shouldn't judge them if they're pale. No. It's about the perversion of natural skin tone in order to meet a beauty standard that doesn't actually exist. Almost always, it's tanned idols with complexions who are teased and pressured into looking like their lighter-skinned members when there was nothing wrong with their appearance to begin with. If I haven't made it clear, I don't intend any disrespect to people who are naturally pale or have skin conditions that make them appear so. My criticism is not toward pale or light people for being light. Reducing colorism in K-pop is a very difficult thing to do, as it's dated as far back as ancient Joseon dynasty, where light skin equated to status, since it was scholars and elites who stayed out of the sun because they pursued education and their duties indoors. But what I've learned from the Shinee controversy and Kiin Taemin's apologies that shortly came after is that these criticisms are reaching K-pop idols, or at least they're starting to. So continue the conversation, call out colorism when it happens, and I hope we see a positive change. As for whitewashing, which is a big part of what has made colorism worse and is the bulk of my argument, this is a little tricky because it feels off to comment on a selfie of your favorite idol saying, "You look too white, please stop looking like you've stolen all of Queen Elizabeth's lead." Yeah, that probably won't help anyone. What we can do though is praise idols when we see unlightened photos or when they appear tanned. We don't have to patronize them, but just saying something like "you're glowing" or "that tan makes you look great" are small ways to remove dark skin stigma and change the narrative. I would say don't worry too much about the language aspect if you don't know Korean, because the fact that Ki and Taemin, they heard us when we called them out for their colorist comments, it means that they are listening. Of course, there is an advantage with Ki knowing English, but I just feel that making comments in general is just gonna get them to listen. I hope this video has added some insight into what has made colorism worse in K-pop, as colorism itself has been a prevalent issue in Asian societies for a very long time, and I'm not sure if we've really talked about the impact of social media or how that's exacerbated the issue. But thank you so much for watching this video, and I'm planning to make more videos like this, doing K-pop commentary on various issues within K-pop. So if you're interested in that, please subscribe, and I'm looking forward to the next one.